Let's talk a little bit about master detail. Over here in our demo subform folder, there are two controllers. There's the show orders controller that shows us all the orders, and then there's the detail button that would call the show order details, sending it the order ID to display that in a different dialog. Let's run it and look. Training, demo subform. Here we have our orders, and if we click on details, we will get to see the actual subform, or the actual detail of that order, the detail of that master. Well, what if we want to embed this over here and have it refresh whenever we move between the rows in the parent? We don't want to have two screens, we don't want to have to click a button to get there, we just want this to work. Well, for that, there's the subform control, and let me show you how it's used. We're going to go to the show order screen and resize the grid over here to be smaller, and we'll grab the subform from our toolbox and place it on our screen. Great. Next, we need to set to that subform what we're actually using. So let's go behind the code and go to subform. Let's go behind the code of the view and say here subform set controller. And set controller accepts two parameters. One is the controller, and the other is the command to run when we want it to run. So let's just create that. We'll go to the code of our controller, and we'll define a new member of the type of our child controller. So in this case, I want to use show order details. So I'm going to say show order details control. That's the name of our type, and I'll call it show order details controller. Okay, and we'll use that for the first parameter of our subform. The second parameter is an action, which means what do we want to run when we actually run our controller. Well, an action, as we know, is a method that receives no parameters and returns no parameters. So let's create just that. We're going to say over here public void run show order details. Okay, a method that returns no parameter and accepts no parameter. If you want to learn more about actions, there's the lambdas actions bind value series that you can watch and learn a lot about this. And here we'll just say show orders details controller dot run and give it orders dot order ID. Perfect. And we'll go back to our code behind of the UI. And we'll set our controller to controller dot show order details controller, and the run command will set to our controller dot run show orders details. Great. So now we'll run this and see what happens. And we have our now little subform at the bottom, which is great. It looks great. But notice that as we move along, the child grid is empty. Well, let's just go there and press Shift F12 to break into the code. And let's try to see what the value of the where is. And we can see here that the value of the where is order ID is 10248, 10249, 10248. Every time we called it, the new order ID was added to the where collection. So now we have a complex where that just doesn't mean anything. So just like before, we'll say here where.clear to clear the where every time we run this controller, because when we're using a subform, we're actually reusing this controller, just like we've done before with the get order statistics business process. So let's run it now and see what happens. Perfect. Now everything refreshes as we want it, and if we click on the child, we'll get to the child, and if we click on the parent, we'll get to the parent, and we've got our subform set for us. So let's just review what did it take to add a subform to our code. Well, we put it in the designer, that's okay. In our show orders controller, we've added these lines of code, which means we've added the definition of the controller, and we've added the run method to run when we want to run that controller. In our view, so let's go to changes. In our view, we've added subform.setController with the controller we've just defined and the run method that we've just defined. And in our child controller, never forget to say where clear, so the where will clear every time the subform is called.